Some traps have no bait. They're carefully set with kindness, glances, and half-truths. Doris was just the cleaning lady in a luxury building in Los Angeles. Quiet, hardworking, invisible to almost everyone, except the CEO. What started as lingering stares turned into something far more twisted, a web of manipulation where the victim believed she was saving a friend, when in fact she was being broken by two people who wore smiles as masks. This is a story about seduction, loyalty, and the cost of believing too deeply in someone else's pain. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our real-life stories that reveal the deepest dilemmas of the human soul. She arrived before the sun dared to rise. Doris didn't like to talk much. Her voice carried a soft accent that made people ask where she was from. She'd smile politely and say, "South Texas." But that was never the whole truth. She had crossed more borders than most could imagine, carrying a past she didn't fully understand herself. But there, on the 27th floor of a mirrored building in downtown Los Angeles, she was just the cleaning lady. The routine was always the same. Bathrooms, carpets, meeting rooms that smelled like stale coffee. But in recent weeks, there was something different. Someone was watching her. A constant silhouette in the inner window of the executive office. Tall, always in a dark suit. The kind of man who spoke little to subordinates but stared too much. Doris felt the weight of that gaze like a cold breeze on her neck. He didn't smile, didn't greet her, but always seemed to be where she was. Too close to be coincidence, far enough not to be accused. The first time she noticed, she thought it was paranoia. The second time, she was sure. The third, she changed the schedule of the floor she cleaned. He changed his too. One night, when only the cold corridor lights remained, she heard the sliding glass door behind her. "Working alone tonight?" The voice was calm, too polite not to sound rehearsed. She turned slowly. It was him. The CEO, Cole Maxwell. "Always," she replied, still holding the duster. He stepped closer. It must be exhausting, not having anyone to talk to. She forced a neutral smile without humor. He didn't look away. "Good work, Doris," he said, as if completing a ritual, and left. She stood still, waiting for the sound of expensive shoes to vanish into the carpet. Then, she resumed cleaning what was already clean. It happened again for days. Small phrases, long looks, prolonged silences. But Doris didn't give in. Not out of fear. She had faced worse things than words spoken behind glass walls. It was something harder to explain. A bitter sense that if she responded, she'd be giving up something she couldn't get back. It was on one of those nights, while she emptied the last trash bins on the floor, that she met Mallory, an HR analyst who often worked late, but that night seemed different, kinder, more attentive. "Hey, want a coffee?" she asked, offering a paper cup. "I always see you here, but we never talk." Doris accepted. It was strange for someone from that floor to offer her anything. But there was something sincere in Mallory's eyes, or so it seemed. That night, they talked for 20 minutes in the empty break room. Mallory said little about herself, but a lot about the company's toxic environment, subtle pressures, fake smiles. She also talked about the fear of being fired. Doris listened more than she spoke. When she returned to cleaning, she noticed that for the first time in a long while, she didn't just feel the weight of the CEO's gaze. She felt the echo of a possible friendship. Or so she thought. Cole Maxwell didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. When he entered a room, conversations softened and spines straightened. His presence was heavy in a quiet way, like the pressure before a storm. He was in his early 40s, impeccably dressed, with steel gray eyes that scanned more than they saw. People called him sharp, decisive, a natural leader. But those who worked closest to him knew the truth. Cole didn't lead. He dominated. He had built the company from a modest tech consultancy into a multi-million-dollar firm. Investors trusted him, boards obeyed him, and employees feared him in a polite, restrained way. He rarely yelled, never swore, but could end a career with a single look of disapproval. Women were always around him, polished, intelligent, carefully selected. None lasted long. Some left with sealed envelopes. Others never returned after closed-door meetings. There were rumors, but no one dared repeat them out loud. Not in that building. Doris was different. She wasn't part of his world, which made her fascinating. He had noticed her months ago, moving like a ghost between offices, eyes lowered, hair tied back in that same practical knot. There was a quiet grace in her movements, a self-possession he didn't see in anyone else on the payroll. He watched. He waited. And when he finally spoke to her, a simple question, a passing comment, she didn't stumble or blush. She answered and returned to work. No interest, no fear, no visible reaction. That resistance intrigued him more than seduction ever could. But Cole didn't chase, not directly. That wasn't his way. Instead, he summoned someone who owed him. Mallory Green was competent, ambitious, and too entangled in past mistakes to say no. She had made one error, years ago, involving confidential data and a signed NDA. Cole had kept it quiet, but she knew it cost her more than just gratitude. He called her into his office. "I need you to befriend someone," he said, leaning back, voice calm. "The cleaning lady, Doris." Mallory blinked. "Why?" He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Because she trusts no one, and we need to fix that." She hesitated, just for a second. "And after that? Leave the rest to me." She left his office knowing two things: she was being used, and she had no choice. Back at her desk, Mallory opened the internal directory. No last name, just Doris. No photo, no department. Just a schedule, night shift, cleaning rotation, invisible, just like he said. But Mallory was good at one thing, being what people needed her to be. So she rehearsed her smile, softened her voice, and waited for the right moment to introduce herself. Like it was all an accident. And from the corner of his glass-walled office, Cole watched the beginning of the play he had written, smiling like a man who always gets what he wants. It started with a coffee cup. Mallory appeared just as Doris was wiping down the break room counter. She held 2 steaming cups and wore a cardigan that made her look softer, almost out of place in the sterile office halls. "I figured you might need this," she said, handing one over without waiting for a yes. Doris paused, then accepted it. A small nod. She didn't trust easily. Not in that place. Not after the months of silent stares from the man upstairs. But Mallory seemed harmless. She sat on the edge of a table, legs crossed, posture relaxed. She didn't ask questions. She made observations about the building, the people, the silence after hours. Little things. "You ever notice how cold this place feels after 9?" she said. "Not the temperature, just cold." Doris looked at her, cautious. "I'm used to it," Mallory smiled, a little sad. "Yeah, me too." That's how it began, not with a flood, but a drip. Each night, Mallory just happened to be around. She brought snacks once, then stories, small pieces of herself, or what Doris thought were pieces. She talked about growing up in Fresno, about hating crowds, about how she used to think HR was about helping people, not managing crises. She never pried into Doris's life. That made her feel safer. Like maybe this wasn't a setup. Like maybe someone finally saw her. They laughed once about a broken vending machine. It felt strange. Warm, even. Doris hadn't laughed like that in years. One night, after a long silence between them, Mallory said quietly, "You ever feel like you're just disposable here?" Doris looked up. Mallory didn't look at her, just sipped her coffee. "Like if you disappeared, the building wouldn't even notice." Doris nodded. "It's not just a feeling." Mallory turned to her then. Her eyes looked tired, honest. "Can I tell you something? Just between us?" Doris hesitated, then nodded. Mallory lowered her voice. "Cole, the CEO, he's not what people think he is." There it was, the name, said softly like a curse. "He's been making things difficult for me. For months. It started with compliments, little things, then warnings, implied threats. Now I'm scared to be alone when he's around." She looked at Doris now, eyes wide and vulnerable. "But I can't report it. No one would believe me. And if I say anything, I'm gone. Just like that." Silence filled the break room. Doris felt her stomach tighten, that cold breeze again, but inside her now. She didn't answer right away. Mallory reached for her hand lightly. "I don't know why I'm telling you this, I guess. I just see something in you. You're not like the others." For the first time in weeks, Doris didn't feel invisible, and that, more than anything, made her lower her guard. The locker room always smelled faintly of bleach and metal. It was a quiet place, forgotten after hours, where voices echoed differently, more intimate, more fragile. Doris was folding her jacket when Mallory walked in, unannounced. She looked paler than usual. Her eyes avoided contact. "Can I sit?" she asked. Doris nodded. Mallory sat on the bench, hands shaking slightly. Something happened last night, she said. With Cole, the name dropped like a stone. Doris paused, her hands stilled on the fabric. Mallory took a breath and began to speak. Not in a rush, not dramatic, but with the quiet precision of someone trying to stay composed. She said he cornered her. Nothing physical, not this time. Just words. A threat disguised as a compliment, a suggestion she couldn't refuse, and a reminder of what he could do to her position, to her future, if she didn't learn how to be more cooperative. She didn't cry, but her voice broke once. I know I'm nothing special. I know I'm lucky to even have this job, but no one should have to pretend just to survive. Doris didn't respond right away. Her own memories clawed at her chest. Places she had left, men she had avoided, hands she had pushed away. Mallory leaned closer. I didn't come here to make you uncomfortable. I swear. I need help. I don't know what to do anymore. Doris looked at her. What kind of help? Mallory hesitated. The pause was too long. He likes you, Doris. I've seen it. Everyone sees it. He watches you like you're something he can't have. That's rare for him. Doris frowned. A bitter chill spread in her stomach. So? Mallory lowered her voice, ashamed. What if you could use that? I mean, just to distract him. Not anything serious, just enough to make him back off, from me, from both of us. There it was, the unspoken offer veiled as a suggestion, a twisted plea dressed as strategy. Doris stared at her. She didn't speak. The silence between them thickened. I know it's wrong, Mallory added quickly, but maybe it's the only way. You wouldn't be doing it for him. You'd be doing it for me. The words echoed, cruelly sweet. You'd be doing it for me? Doris stood. She didn't say yes. She didn't say no. She just picked up her things and left. But that night, when she lay in bed, eyes wide open, the fan clicking above her, she kept hearing the same voice. What if it's the only way? Doris didn't sleep that night. The city outside her window pulsed with distant sirens and flickering lights, but inside her apartment, everything was still. Still, except for her thoughts. They turned over themselves like waves, crashing, receding, returning. Mallory's words wouldn't leave her. You wouldn't be doing it for him. You'd be doing it for me. By morning, Doris looked in the mirror and barely recognized herself. She wasn't broken, but something inside had bent, something that had always kept her upright. At work that night, Mallory didn't appear. Not in the break room, not in the halls. Doris noticed her absence like a missing tooth. Not visible, but deeply felt. Instead, there was Cole. He appeared suddenly, as if he had been waiting for her to be alone. He stepped into the hallway near the elevators where she was mopping, his footsteps soft, his face unreadable. You've been quiet lately, he said. She didn't stop mopping. I'm working, he smiled faintly. I like that about you. You're focused, real. She said nothing. He moved a little closer. You don't play games like the others. I respect that. She gripped the mop handle tighter. Do you need something? There was a pause. Then he leaned in just enough for his voice to drop into a whisper. Everyone needs something, Doris, even you. And with that, he walked away. That night, Doris found a note in her locker. Handwritten, folded carefully, no name, but the handwriting was Mallory's. It said only, if you do it, he'll stop. I know he will. Just once. You're stronger than me. She read it twice, then folded it back. Her hands trembled. She was stronger. That's what made this worse. The next day, she went to church. Not because she was devout, but because she needed silence. She lit a candle, sat in the back pew, and let the quiet press against her. She thought about her mother, long gone, about the promises she'd made to herself when she first crossed the border, about dignity, about survival. Was this still survival? Or was it surrender? That night, she made a decision. It wasn't about desire. It wasn't even about sacrifice. It was about control. If she had to give something, anything, then she would do it on her terms, not his. And certainly not for Mallory. The office felt emptier than usual. The lights were dimmed, and the usual hum of distant printers was gone. Doris walked slower that evening, her cart quieter, her steps more deliberate. Every door she passed looked darker, every hallway longer. She had made up her mind. Or perhaps it had been made for her, slowly, over weeks of silences and stolen glances. Either way, the decision was behind her now. She had left her usual work uniform at home. Instead, she wore a plain, neat blouse. Still modest, but different. Clean. Chosen. The executive floor was quiet. Cole's office door was open. He was there, behind his desk, sleeves rolled, no tie. He looked up when she stepped in and didn't smile, not fully. Just that small movement at the corner of his mouth that always felt like a calculation. "Doris," he said, as if greeting an old friend. She stood by the door. "I'm not here to talk." He nodded once. His eyes never left hers. She entered, closed the door softly behind her. For a long moment, they just stood in silence. There were no words left to play with, no scripts to perform. Cole stepped around the desk, stopped a few feet from her. "Are you sure?" She didn't answer right away. Then, "I'm sure of what I'm doing, not of what it means." That answer caught him off guard, but he didn't press. What happened next was quiet, tense, not passion, but transaction. An offering disguised as control, a silence that screamed more than any word could. Afterward, she adjusted her blouse, smoothed her hair, looked at the skyline through the glass wall of his office. "Will she be safe now?" she asked, not turning around. He didn't lie. "That depends on her." She gave a slow nod. "That's what I thought." She walked out without another word. In the elevator alone, Doris looked at her reflection. Not sad, not proud, just still. And yet something flickered in her eyes. Not brokenness, not submission, but calculation. Something she would never say aloud. Not yet. 3 days passed, then 5, then 10. Mallory didn't say a word. She walked past Doris once in the corridor. No smile, no nod, just a flicker of recognition and something else in her eyes. Guilt? Fear? Distance? Doris felt the shift like a crack in glass. At first, she told herself Mallory was just being careful. Maybe it had worked. Maybe Cole had backed off. Maybe things were returning to normal. But they weren't. Mallory avoided the break room. She stayed late, but never crossed paths with Doris. There were no more coffees, no soft voices, no glances of understanding, just absence. Cole, on the other hand, returned to his usual silence. Cold, formal, indifferent. He passed Doris in the halls as if she were invisible again. No words, no eye contact. As if nothing had happened, as if she had imagined it. Doris continued her work, her routine unchanged. But something inside her refused to settle. There was no closure, no gratitude, no peace. Late one night, she lingered in the staff kitchen. She waited. Mallory arrived, tired, holding her phone. She jumped slightly when she saw Doris. "Hi," Mallory said, cautious. "Is he leaving you alone?" Doris asked directly. Mallory blinked, took a breath. "He hasn't said anything to me. I think it's over." Doris stared at her. "That's it." Mallory looked down at her coffee. "What do you mean?" Doris didn't answer. She just turned and walked away. Something was wrong. Not just the silence, not just the distance, but the way Mallory acted like a debt had never existed. Like the price Doris had paid was invisible, forgotten. It wasn't just betrayal, it was erasure. That night, Doris didn't sleep. She opened her old laptop, searched through backup files, reread every email she had ever received from building staff, every casual message from Mallory. Then, buried in a folder of deleted items, she found it. An email forwarded by accident months ago. A short thread between Mallory and Cole. Flirtatious, strategic, too familiar. One line stood out. From Mallory to him. "If she trusts me, I can get her to do anything." Doris stared at it. Her breath slowed. And for the first time she understood, she had never been helping anyone. She had been played. Doris read the email 3 times. The words didn't change. The tone was unmistakable. Mallory's message was dated weeks before their first late-night coffee, before the tears, before the confession. "If she trusts me, I can get her to do anything." Doris sat still in her kitchen, laptop glowing against the dark. The hum of the fridge was the only sound in the room. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, but she didn't type. What was there to say? She clicked through the thread. There were more messages. Not frequent, just enough to sketch the shape of something deliberate. Cole's replies were brief, mostly directives, timing suggestions. Questions like, "Did she open up?" Or, "How soon?" Mallory responded with updates. Progress. Observations. Once, she wrote, "She's starting to trust me. I told her what you said about the pressure. She believes it. We're close." That message was dated just 2 days before Mallory first mentioned the CEO's threats in the locker room. Doris closed the laptop slowly. The apartment felt colder now. She thought about the long silences, the sad smiles. The way Mallory had reached for her hand told her she was different. How she had made it seem like 2 women surviving a cruel world together. But Mallory hadn't been trying to survive. She'd been trying to climb. And Doris had been the latter. Back at the office the next night, Doris moved quietly. Not out of fear, but clarity. She was watching now, seeing things she hadn't before. Cole smiled at a new intern. Mallory laughed in a meeting she didn't belong in. Their world spun on unaffected, or so they thought. Doris emptied a bin in the executive hallway. There was a paper inside, printed notes from an HR file. On top, Mallory's name, a proposed promotion, effective next quarter. Doris didn't take the paper. She didn't need proof anymore. She had something better, memory, witness, resolve, and a silence that now belonged to her. She waited until the building emptied. The office after hours was all glass and quiet, a perfect stage for truths that had hidden in shadows. Doris didn't knock. She entered Cole's office with the calm of someone who had nothing left to fear. He looked up from his screen, startled, then wary. "Doris, don't," she said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it stopped him cold. She held a printout, a copy of the email, the one Mallory had sent. She placed it on his desk without a word. Cole glanced at it. His jaw tightened, but he didn't reach for it, didn't deny it. Doris folded her arms. "Why?" He leaned back slowly, like a man who had nothing left to pretend. "Because I could." Silence. "She owed me," he added. "Mallory, years ago she made a mistake. I buried it. She repaid me." Doris stared at him. "By selling me?" He shrugged, not cruelly, but with the cold pragmatism of a man who had played this game too long. "You were never supposed to get hurt. You were supposed to help her. Help me, and maybe help yourself." That last part, the implication. He saw the flicker in her eyes and smiled. "Don't act like you didn't wonder what you could gain. We all want something." Doris said nothing. He stood. "This is how the world works, Doris. Power isn't taken, it's traded." She turned to leave. "She was your accomplice," she said without looking back. "Not your victim." He didn't argue. Mallory was waiting in the hallway. She must have heard the voices. She looked pale, lips tight, eyes searching for mercy. Doris didn't stop walking. Mallory reached out, a whisper. "I didn't mean. I thought I could control it. I didn't know he'd—" Doris stopped. "You knew exactly what you were doing." Mallory's voice cracked. "I was trying to survive." Doris nodded, just once. "So was I." Then she walked away, past the glass, past the lies, into the night air that didn't ask questions. But something inside her had changed. The pain hadn't left, but it no longer blinded her. Now it burned with purpose. Monday morning came like any other. Doris walked into the building before sunrise, as she always did. Same uniform, same cart, same keys clipped to her belt. But something in her eyes had changed. She passed the glass conference rooms, the polished floors, the untouched coffee machines, and saw them all with a kind of clarity that didn't allow for illusion anymore. Cole was in his office. He looked up as she passed. This time, she didn't pause. She didn't need to. In her pocket was a USB drive, encrypted, containing email threads, audio from the break room, not recorded out of vengeance, but out of instinct. A quiet voice inside her that had always told her to pay attention. Just in case. She'd been dismissed as background, as a pawn, as a silence to be filled. But she had always been watching, remembering. She left the drive with a reporter she knew from her church, a woman who once asked her for help cleaning out her garage and who had given her food when she was between apartments. No lawyers, no press conferences, just truth, sent quietly. Let the world decide what it meant. Back at the office, Doris entered the women's restroom. Alone, she stood before the mirror, adjusting her collar. She looked older than she remembered, not weaker, just settled. Her reflection looked back without apology. As she exited, a new cleaning supervisor greeted her. "You're not on this floor today," he said. "You've been reassigned." She raised an eyebrow. "Where?" He smiled. "Facilities support, ground operations. It's a step up, actually." Doris nodded. She didn't ask questions. She just walked slowly toward the elevator. The halls behind her whispered. Mallory's name was no longer on the HR roster. Cole's glass office was darker than usual. People noticed. But Doris didn't need to see the aftermath. She had made peace with never getting closure. What she had now was control, not over others, but over her own silence, over the way she would carry her story, not as a victim, not as a martyr, but as something far more unsettling, as a woman who had known she was being used, and decided in the end to use that knowledge for herself. If this story moved you in any way, consider subscribing to the channel. There are more truths waiting to be told, the kind that begin in silence and end with a voice that finally chooses to speak.